Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Defining Discipline podcast. I'm your host, Scott. This is episode 343, as well as day 343 of my journey. At the beginning of the year, I challenged myself to run 365 days in a row, all outside, bearing the elements, whatever they may bring here in the great state of Michigan. I also challenged myself to run 1,500 miles within this yearly time frame, as well as to run two big races within this yearly time frame. One of those races being a 50K ultramarathon trail race. That was the Yankee Springs 50K trail race out in Middleville, Michigan on day 156 of my journey. I was able to run and finish that 31-mile race within 7 hours, 15 minutes, and 22 seconds, which was a personal record for me. One being the distance I've ever ran and just the time in general, because that was the first time I've ever ran an ultramarathon. Was able to get out there and keep the streak alive since, and got to the next big race within this yearly time frame, which was on day 290 of this time frame, and that was the Detroit Free Press Marathon. I ran that race within 3 hours, 57 minutes, and 28 seconds, so was really excited about that time. And that was also a personal record for me. And clearly, since we are talking to you today on day 343, I was able to keep the run streak alive since that race as well. So let's break down the mileage for the day, the week, the month, and the year. So for the day today, day 343, I've been taking it easy. Got out there today and put in 2.2 miles for the day. That put me at 6.8 miles for the week, which put me at 27.7 miles for the month, which put me at 1,603.1 miles for the year. So we were 103.1 miles over the second yearly goal that I had set for myself, because the original goal was 1,250 miles for the year. Crossed that, so bumped it up to 1,500 miles for the year. Have now officially crossed that, but have not set an official finish off the year at this many miles. We're closing out the year here. We're in the last month, so not trying to go crazy. We're going to explain that here in a second as well. So it's kind of cool to be have accomplished that, have accomplished both those big races. Now we're just trying to keep the streak alive and to hit the 365 for the year 2021. But let's focus in on these monthly miles of 27.7. So every single month I challenge myself to run a 100-mile challenge in honor of a charity in which I donate money to, as well as start a coinciding fundraiser to raise money and awareness for throughout that month. For the first 11 months of the year, raise money for 11 great charities. Now we're here within the 12th month, the month of December, and we're raising money for yet another great charity. December's 100-mile charity is in honor of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. If you would like to donate to this month's fundraiser, you can find the link to do so on the Defining Discipline Instagram story or the Defining Discipline Facebook story, or my personal page's Instagram story, or my personal page's Facebook story. Within those stories, like I said, you click on the link, it'll open up the actual Facebook page where you can make your donations. All donations that get made go directly to this cause in this fundraiser. Facebook is not taking any cut or portion or percentage of your donations. It's all going to St. Jude's Children's Hospital here this month. In all previous months, anyone that has made donations, all your donations had gone to any of the previous fundraisers or causes that were throughout that month. So keep that in mind. I do know times are tough. Not everyone can afford to donate, but maybe you have donated as well and you still want to help out. Or you can't afford to, like I said, and you want to help out, the next best thing you can do is click on that share button. We're trying to raise awareness for this cause, and the best way to do that is get as many eyes on it as possible. So I please ask you to share this fundraiser and get your donations in it for it as well. Now let's kind of get ready to get into today's episode 343. I'm a little tired here, guys. But before we do get right into today's episode, we are going to quickly go over today's word of the day for December 9th. It is rankle. Rankle means to cause anger, irritation, or bitterness. Man, that should be today's theme for today's episode. Rankle. To irritation in my ankle. So I got some rankle in my ankle. So either way, that is not today's theme, but that is today's word of the day, 343. There is a lot of irony in that right there. So for today, though, day 343, we're going to actually kind of break that down a little bit. Today's theme for today's episode is temptation. And I wanted to talk about temptation for a couple different reasons. I saved this episode. I wanted to talk about it. I know for sure I wanted to touch on this episode throughout this podcast. Just didn't know when, and now we're really coming closing out the year here. So figured better time than never to do it now, especially with some of the events that have happened today. Nothing crazy, but we'll touch on it. The main thing I wanted to talk about is just temptation in general. The one thing I've learned about temptation is always so tempting. Temptation seems like it's, just to always give in. No matter what the case is, there's always different types of temptation, but any type of temptation, I don't care what the case is, it always seems like a good idea, but there's always negative repercussions. There's some kind of negative connotation with the word itself, temptation. And there's also kind of like a devious positive vibe with it as well, but again, it's devious, which is a negative connotation attached to the word temptation, at least in my eyes. And things can be very tempting. Some diets, certain foods, certain maybe guilty pleasures of going with chocolate bars or whatever the case may be doing tempting things. And those things as well, the repercussions aren't always, and any kind of tempting things, repercussions aren't always immediate. Sometimes it takes a while for those things to catch up to you, but I promise you there's always repercussions in any kind of tempting thing that you do. In the back of your mind, it's tempting, and the reasons it's tempting is because you deep down inside you shouldn't be doing it. Now, story for today. We're gonna go with two different stories. We're gonna start with the story today though for lunch. Today at lunch, one of the options, I had two options for a protein option, and one had lobster and one had turkey, and I just wasn't feeling the turkey. And I loved, for the longest time in my life, I loved shellfish, I love lobster, I love shrimp. But over the past 5 years or so, came into contact and noticed that anytime I eat it, I get a real bad IBS bout where my stomach just feels tore up. I get bad upset stomach. It hurts real bad cramps, and I'll be on the toilet for a couple hours just trying to get it out, and I can't even get it out. I'm just sitting there just trying to just relieve pain, and every time I eat it. And it started happening the past 5 years, but I always tell myself, well, maybe it's gone away. I haven't ate it in a while. I haven't eaten it in a long time. That's always my excuse, because I always get tempted to do it again. And as you can tell where the story's going, yes, today I tempted myself into yet again trying lobster, in the back of my mind saying, because what crazy thing to kind of get it more of a backstory, like I said, it's lobster and shrimp over the past 5 years, anytime I eat it, it really affects my stomach. But what's crazy is I can still eat crab. Uh, Trying to find some wood here. I can still eat crab, which is another one of my favorite things to eat. So that does not affect my stomach. So that's kind of a little backstory there. So I try to tell myself, it's been a while. I can still eat crab. I haven't tried lobster, in probably a year now or a year and a half now. Let me give it a try. Maybe this one's cooked better or cooked longer, maybe, or cook just enough, or I give myself every excuse to do it. And today I took the lobster option instead of taking the turkey option, which was probably the safer around, and just had awful cramps for a majority of the workday after that. It probably actually took maybe 2.5 hours for it to really kick in, 2 hours to kick in. But then after that, it was like a 3 hour bout of stomach and just awful pain, and then being able to kind of get up and walk away for a bit, but having to just another crazy bout of it just attacking me. So again, moral of the story in this little lesson is, do not give into temptation. There's always a bad result within giving into temptation. And that's just a quick, simple, fast go-to story that happened today, which, kind of gave me the inspiration to discuss temptation for today's actual theme. Excuse me. Now, the other thing I want to talk about on temptation, kind of about today as well, is this foot injury, which I kind of discussed. I've been keeping the mileage down here especially this week, these past few days, and been very tempted to really up the mileage. The injury I have, it isn't a painful injury. It's just there's something off with my foot. I can feel it in the actual tendon in the actual foot. And now I've noticed yesterday, and it's happening still today, anytime I go to actually itch the top of my foot, it's numb. So I don't think that's a good thing either. So I'm gonna have to go get that looked at. I'm gonna try to get it looked at a little bit tomorrow, and then maybe go really see a specialist on it if I have to go farther with that. But again, thankfully, it's not been in pain. It's not really affected my running too much. I've kept it a little bit slower pace because of that. I don't want to really pick up a fast pace, and I don't want to pick up the mileage again because of that. I'm really worried about taking myself out, trying to kind of play it by ear, and it's been so much temptation to just take it a little bit farther. Right now I'm fighting the temptation to, I'm trying to do the 100-mile challenge. We've talked about that. I'm doing the 100-mile challenge for December, and I'm 9 days in, and I'm barely past 25 miles. That's not a good sign. So I'm trying to think of a way to kind of work out the mileage, but again, trying to not really up the mileage too much too quickly, and trying to figure that out. It's today it was tempting to really hold back and stay at 2.2. And I did that on accident. I did 2.2 miles for the day today. A complete accident. I got to the point where I could turn to do the 1.5 mile run, and just kept running. I was thinking of something at the point. I wasn't even thinking about, today's turn and go. I was like in deep thought of just in my head on something, and just kept going. Just boom. And then by the time I noticed, I was like, whoa, I better turn around. I was already close to that 1 mile mark, and said, yeah, let's just keep going a little bit, and make sure I passed the 1 mile mark to turn around, and ended up being 2.2. So it worked out. But again, it was tempting to not even go any farther after I realized, I've already went past 1 mile. I feel good. I felt kind of good today getting out there. But again, I'm trying to hold back and not overdo it. and not give in to the temptation of, let's get miles now in order to kind of save myself for later. So that is kind of what I'm dealing with today, and just in general, like I said, I truly believe that anytime temptation is around, anytime you have any sort of temptation, and you say, "Oh, I'm tempted," or um, you're thinking about the temptation itself, um, it has a negative effect. So just do not give in to any temptation. It is the wisest advice I can give, and it's something that, again, that I have to continuously try to give myself, because um, there's so many tempting things every single day, and to really not give into them is very, very key. um, Today in general, failed one by giving in to lobster, and two, kind of didn't fail one by really holding myself back and not going too hard with the amount of miles I put in today. So there's two prime examples of two tempting things that happened, and a failure on one and a success, semi-success on one, because I kind of, like I said, I zoned out and forgot that I was only doing 1.5 miles, but I did stop myself from going any farther after that point of remembering, hey, I better turn the hell around. So that is the moral of today's episode, and just the theme of today's episode is talking about temptation and the key of not giving into any temptation, because anytime you do, there is always going to be a negative effect. You may not see it right away, but it will eventually catch back up to you, and I truly believe that. So, thank you for listening to today's episode. Your daily discipline for today's episode is exactly that. It is to think about all those temptations within your life, and just the temptations that you came across today, which ones you gave into, and to never give into them again. Or obviously you're going to. We're all human. We're not perfect, but to really fight the temptations within your life. That is today's daily discipline. So thank you guys so much for following along and listening to episode 343, day 343. If you guys can, please give this podcast a like, a subscribe, a follow, a share on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and whatever podcast streaming platform you've been following along and listening on. Other than that, thank you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow for episode 344. And until then, just stay disciplined. Get your daily discipline done. If you guys can, get your donations in. And until then, peace out.